right. Welcome, Kari, to the show. I am so freaking excited to have you on here because this has been a dream of mine for about 2 years. Since I first met you, I was like, I'm going to interview this badass woman on a podcast that will happen one day. And I'm just so grateful that you're here.
Oh my gosh, I did not know that you had that dream. That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a treat for me that you're here. Such a treat for anybody who's going to listen to this.
Mhm.
Um, I feel like I've shared this with you, but in case I haven't, it's always good to reiterate. Like, you have had such a profound impact on me just as a human being and on my self development and growth and spiritual journey, like more than you even know.
Mm.
I've said this to you before. I'm like, sometimes I'm just like, I'm resourcing my inner Kari. Like I'm resourcing my Kari. And yeah, I'm just so excited for this conversation today. So thank you so much for
Mm.
being here.
Thank you so much. I received that. It's so fun to just hear from someone the impact that you've created in a positive way. It always feels really good. So thank
Yeah.
you. I
Yeah.
received that.
You're so welcome. So to get us started here, I'd love to just start by asking you, can you share a little bit about your path to embodying your truest expression?
Mhm. Yeah. So that's kind of a loaded question. there's there's um there's a lot of, I like to say, flavor and color to my life. And one thing that people don't realize when they come across people who really just have a solid foundation, and they're just, it doesn't mean that they don't have things happening in their life, but you're like, wow, she's really got it, she's got it figured out. And they don't realize a lot of those people, I would say 100% honestly, have a story, and they have a process that they've been through to be able to get where they are. So I think it's really valuable when we're open and transparent about that, because sometimes it can feel unattainable to be in this place of truly your unique embodiment and your authentic self, to be able to get to that place. And we see people there and we don't know, we're like, how I can never get there, I'm so far from that. So when we share that we were also really far from that, it gives people hope. And hope is such a powerful um, energy and feeling and state to be in, because that means that there's this faith and trust in something better. So man, I'm trying to fill into what would be the most so the most impactful experiences in my life that created the contrast in my life to move me in the direction of commitment to my embodiment and to myself. I'm going to just break them up into categories: sexual abuse, identity crisis of leaving a religion, and a very intense religion that really is your whole identity. So I say identity crisis because you literally don't know who you are after you leave a really intense religion, and just kind of rediscovering that. Eating disorders, exercise addiction, and divorce after 14 years of marriage. And at that time was leaving the religion in my eating disorder. It was a crazy time, as well as another really impactful period in my life was when I lost one of my children. And so the combination of those things throughout my life, from basically age 4 up until, I would say, probably age 35, is when I finally really was like, enough with this way of being, and this just complete and total dissatisfaction and like unhappiness of life. And that's when I started the process of just discovering me, and what does authenticity and embodiment mean to me, and what does that look like. But honestly, all of those things for me personally, I see now had to happen for me to have the desire and the passion to follow this path. And so I have this appreciation and gratitude for all that I've experienced, all of that flavor, all of that color that I have in my life, because it really truly has made me who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be a little, I'm saying this because I remember hearing this from people when they would say these words, and I was in the thick of the thing, and I'm like, will never be thankful for this. Never be thankful for this. So I want to honor that if there's somebody that's in the thick of something that, you know, that may be triggering to hear that. And I just want to invite in, like, let that be here. And also have this curiosity around, like, what if at some point I am thankful for this? And what I see is that all of that contrast, all of that pain, the stories, the trauma, created this opportunity of empathy, like this understanding, this wisdom that you cannot acquire any other way but through experience. You can read and research and know and be professional on certain subjects, but if you have not actually experienced it, you can only know enough to a certain level. It turns into wisdom when you've actually experienced it. So there's this wisdom that's in my system from these things that I've experienced. And because of that, it creates my unique embodiment and understanding and authenticity, which is freaking fabulous. And it's always evolving and changing.
Yes.
I mean, my embodiment today is going to be different next year or even in a month.
Yeah. That was such an amazing response to that question. I love seeing where this goes. And I love that you pointed out one thing that I want to actually return to, because it's so true. There are people who might listen to this and be like, well, look at where she is. I'm never going to get to that place. Like, I'm just in the thick of it. And you mentioned the word contrast, which I love that you mentioned this, because when we're going through something really difficult, right? I mean, everything that you shared, identity crisis, religion, right? Losing a child, eating disorder, sexual abuse, like all of these things, when you're in it, you're not seeing yourself years ahead, right? Like embodying your most, like you're just not seeing
you just want out.
You just want out. You want to get the fuck out of there. And so I'm curious, as you are going through some of these, and whichever one comes up is perfect, where did you pull from in those moments to just keep going? And when did you realize, like, oh, because now that I think you and I both maybe have this awareness, right? Things are happening for us, not to us. And that's hard sometimes when what's happening for you is really difficult, right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like, where did you pull from in those moments? And when did you start to kind of see the patterns of, like, oh, this, you mentioned the colors, and I love that, like all the different flavors and colors. Where did you notice that, like, oh, like those darker times and moments are actually allowing me to experience the other side of the spectrum as well?
Oh my gosh, I love that you asked this, because literally this morning, so every morning I start my day with just some meditation / contemplation. But I'm always having a cup of cacao. Cacao is really heart opening.
I have it right here.
Yeah. I love Mother Cacao. She is a plant medicine that is not mind altering, but heart opening. I mean, she is just such a beautiful plant to take in. It's raw chocolate. If you don't know what cacao is, and research it, it's amazing. So with my cup of cacao, I start my day in either envisioning and manifesting what it is that I desire to bring forward, and just go in this rampage of gratitude. And so I was this morning just going on this list of gratitude of all the things, and it ended up being people, all the people in my life, and you were one of them. Like, I'm so thankful for Ashley, and so I was just going through this list, and then it came to this place evolved eventually into, I am so thankful for all of my experiences. I am so thankful for that piece in me, that part in me that never gave up, and I started weeping. It's making me a little bit emotional just thinking back on that experience just a couple hours ago, that even though like my human and my state of mind in those moments didn't have the understanding that I have now, that makes it easier when it doesn't mean that the things are not difficult that I go through, but it's easier in the fact that I have this evidence that really, truly everything is happening for me. But there were moments that I didn't know that, like intellectually, and I hadn't actually, I had experienced it, but I hadn't consciously like pointed to it and gone, oh, I get it. I was in that victim like most of my life. And so I felt like everything was happening to me. And why me? Why me? So so to answer your question, I'm feeling into my body where it was, because it wasn't a conscious thing that I was like, ooh, there's this drive to keep going despite. But I would say it was in my heart and my solar plexus, where there was just this deep within there. It was not conscious. It was just this, I got to keep going. You know, my child passed away. I can't believe this happened to me. I got to keep going. You know, I'm in this eating disorder. I'm in this marriage I don't want to be in. I'm in a religion that's literally like mentally, physically, spiritually just killing me. You know, all these things that happen, but yet I continue to keep going. And I feel like it's like almost, it's just deep with it. It was deep within my body. And I wasn't conscious of it, but it was there. And I'm so thankful for that. And we've all got it. If you're still here alive and you're listening to this podcast, you have it.
Mm-hmm.
You just aren't consciously aware of it. Or maybe you are, and it's so tiny right now. So just like nurture that, just honor where it's at. And you're a consciousness of it. But even if it's so small or you don't feel like it exists, it does. Once again, if you're here, it exists. You have continued to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And if you feel like it's small, it's not. I promise. The more that you have your attention on it and you see it, it grows, and you realize it's never been small. It's always been there. It's like having the lights off in your room doesn't mean that an object isn't there. Let's use the example of like gold and jewels. You're in this room and the lights are off. You're like, the gold and jewels is not here. I cannot see it. It's not here. Well, you turn on this tiny little flashlight. You're like, oh, there's a little bit here. There's a little bit here. But the fact that you can't see it, or you can only see a little bit, doesn't mean that it's not all there. It's just that you don't have the awareness of it yet. So
Mm-hmm.
that ability to be able to be embodied and have that drive to keep going is there. It's you're just either not aware of it, or you haven't fully turned the light on to see it.
Yes. Oh, I love that analogy so
Mhm.
much. And I'm going to take it even a step further. And I'm not great at analogies. I actually shared that with someone this week. So we're going to see if it works. Okay. Like, yes to everything you said. And I loved how you brought up just like nurturing, like just nurturing it. Even if you feel like it's not even existent, it
Mhm.
is there. Maybe it's small, or maybe you don't have access to it, or the room is so dark right now, but it's
Mhm.
there.
Mhm.
And I believe that it shows up in these little moments of like, because it's like resilience, right? It's like that
Mhm.
drive to keep going. I believe is like it's your soul, right?
Mhm.
It's like your soul knows the truth, but we just
Yeah.
get piled on with so much junk and gunk and shit that like takes us further away from who we are.
Mhm.
That is why I love sharing these stories, because you can see like, oh, what was that little flashlight? Maybe it was just, I don't know, you met someone and they sparked something. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, there's a little tiny light. The analogy that I was gonna share was like all those things that get layered on. It's almost like you're in a dark room with a blindfold and your hands are tied behind your back. And then there's like a maze or like, I don't
Right?
know,
Yes.
like all your senses are shut off. Like, literally, right? Eating disorders that
Mhm.
pulls you far as fuck away from yourself.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
can speak from experience. I was in that battle for many years,
Mhm.
I still struggle with food and body to some extent. Like that is an ongoing thing for me, and
Mhm.
that has
Mm.
often pulled me away from who I am.
Mhm.
I feel like just when I see you, you embody so much of authentic expression and just like honoring all parts of you, the weird, the vibrant, the sexual, like all of the things. And because you do that, that inspires me and reminds me like, oh, it's like the light turns on within me. It's like, oh, this is part of you as well. It just has been lying dormant for a while, right? It just has to be awakened. The lights have to be shed on it. So did the analogy work?
Yes. Oh
Did
my
that make
gosh. I
sense?
love that. I love taking, yes, 100%. And so the thing to realize is that, for some people, it may just be a matter of just turning on a flashlight and just it's something so simple as that. And then for somebody else, it's like, I've got to untie my hands and take the blindfold off and get through this maze, so there's layers and levels to your unconsciousness of what's available for you. And
Mhm.
one person is not better than the other. They're at a different place and a different path of their awakening, and they're just coming to the realization that they are worthy, they are whole, there's nothing to do. And that's like, that was it literally felt like my mind was going to explode when I first started hearing those words of, there's nothing that you have to do. You can't get it wrong and you'll never get it done. I do know that Abraham Hicks is the one that said, you can't get it wrong and you never get it done. But I don't know who to quote for, there's nothing for you to do actually here in this
Mhm.
life, and that you aren't your pain, you aren't your trauma. I was so identified with everything. So all of those things, it was like literally my brain was frying, and my ego was like short wiring, because my ego wants to like attach and identify with all the things. And I want to give credit to plant medicine for really waking me up and out of the forgetfulness that I'm not this human 3D experience that I'm in. Like, this
Mm.
is just an amazing simulation that my soul is dropped into, and I'm playing it in this fabulous human suit that is literally a miracle. And it's just giving me direction, and it's giving me experiences for opportunity of expansion.
Mm.
And so the only way that we can expand is through the contrast, through the contraction. And this is, see, I love analogies. So this is another analogy that I love. And that is that realizing that our physicality is no different than our spirituality and our energetic experience. So we have signs all over the place given by spirit, by God, that like basically this is the recipe of life. And so one thing that we have been gifted is that our physicality is no different than our spirituality. So you to be able to build up a muscle in your physical body, you have to have a contraction. So I'm going to use the example of your bicep. If you want to grow your bicep and you want it to be big and strong, you can't just sit and meditate and just like imagine it growing. You've got to do work, and the work is contraction. You've got to actually contract that muscle. And I used to be a personal trainer, so what ends up happening when you contract a muscle, you actually rip and tear the fibers. It's not a pretty sight. You're actually destroying the muscle when you're lifting that that weight. And so it's not comfortable. If you've worked out at all, which I'm sure everybody at some point has done something, afterwards, the next day, you're like, oh my gosh, my muscles hurt so much. Like they're so sore. And then you have to go through the rest and the recovery, which is the integration. So there's a contraction that happens, and a ripping and tearing. That's where the contrast and all of that happens in our spirituality. So we have something what we label as bad, and there is nothing that's bad. It's all just an experience, but we see it as bad because it hurts. It's like, this hurts, and then we have this opportunity to like see it, observe it, and see it for what it is. And what it is this opportunity for expansion and growth. And so as we continually experience these contrasts in the spiritual, we grow and expand as a soul. Just as when we're working our bicep consistently, the bicep grows. And it gets healthy and strong. And then the more you do it, you're able to lift heavier weight, and you feel stronger, and you're able to take on more. It's no different. So when we can see it that way, it takes out the like taking it personal. It's like, oh no, this is actually really truly happening for me. I have an opportunity. That's why people who are just really embodied, really authentic, they have a lot of color. Usually they've experienced, they've been in the gym, they've done their work. And that's why they're so solid. They have such a solid foundation.
Yeah. They've been in the spiritual gym, and it's not like you go from having like nothing, right? Like string being in arms to like having these huge biceps. No. Like it takes time. Yes. It takes time to grow, and multiple contractions, multiple ripping. Exactly.
I don't want to like, just thinking about if you have never lifted a weight and you had to go into the gym and lift 100 pounds to bicep curl, there's no way you would not be able to do that. I'm thankful for the progression that we have.
Yeah, you have to honor the progression, because I've been studying this concept in Judaism, and it's all about building your vessel. So building your physical body up in order to hold physically, spiritually, energetically, all of the things that we experience in life. Because there's a reason why people win the lottery and then end up losing the money right away. It's because they weren't ready to hold it. So similar to what you said about, right, like working out, building up that bicep, you can't go from having nothing to just all of a sudden, holding all of it. And so you have to honor the journey. And I think that's where a really big opportunity for me has been. I'm curious about you as well, because I noticed so many people get tripped up about the timeline and wanting to control and wanting to get from, completely asleep and unaware to like awakened and enlightened. And it's not going to be like a 5-day thing. You can't just like, it may be for some people, right? That might be their journey to have it be super quick, but honoring the timeline of it all. And I am being met with this opportunity over and over and over again, because our egos love to control. We want to feel safe in knowing how things are going to play out, but that's just not how this game of life works.
Right.
It's just not.
Oh man, girl, that's such a good one. I think that those of us that had eating disorders really, really get challenged by this one, because we're suckers for in 5 days, you'll lose 10 pounds, do this workout in this many days and you'll have shredded abs. So we are just suckers for timelines and for, okay, if I do this thing for this long, it'll happen at this date. And so, man, just really honoring the patience and the timing of the unfolding of whatever it is that you're desiring to become or achieve, just realizing that once again, we never get it done. So that was super tiring for me. I'm like, I want to be done. Like, can I just have an end date of all of this? And the end date is when I die, honestly. But so there's always more. And really when I felt into that, I'm like, actually, I really love that, because how boring would life be is if I had it all figured out at my age right now, 43, I would be bored. I'd be so bored for the rest of my life. There would literally be nothing to do. There would be no flavor to my life and waves that I'm riding. And no matter how high it is or how low it is in that moment, we actually love the process. We love the journey. Sam actually said this, and I might butcher the quote, but it's, if you're not loving the journey, you're doing it wrong. And so if all you care about is getting to the thing, whether it's like achieving a physical thing or being a certain way, you're doing it wrong, because we actually don't care about the manifestation. Think about times that you've gotten to a thing or like, you know, made the money or got the lover or whatever. It's awesome for a minute. And then it's like, next, not that you're not in love with your lover anymore, but you're like, okay, I manifested that. Now what? There's always something else that you're journeying towards and that you're in the process of. So when we can really, truly, truly love the process and be okay and accept where we are. So accept and okay doesn't necessarily mean love. You don't have to love where you are, but if you can truly accept where you are, that's where the magic happens. And then you're able to have this, there's space in your system to be able to see it for what it is, and its opportunity, its experience. And when we can see it that way, then we land in our bodies more, and we're here more, and we experience it more. And then more wisdom comes, more appreciation, more gratitude, more understanding.
Yes.
And less struggle. Because when we're fighting where we are and we're resisting where we are, that's what causes the struggle and the suffering in our system. And it's unnecessary.
Yes,
Pain is
it's so
inevitable.
unnecessary.
Suffering is option. Pain is part of this human experience, because once again, you cannot grow without the contraction. So it's inevitable. We're all going to experience it. We experience it in different levels, in different ways. But the suffering is optional. And that is our ego. That's our human that just creates meaning to what your human is experiencing in that moment. And there's there's neutrality to it. It's, you are the one that creates it being good or bad, wrong or right. And if we can take those labels away and just accept it and have neutrality around it. And do I do that all the time? Nope. So I'm going to like call myself out right now. I'm so much better at it. And man, do the experiences feel so dense and heavy in our body sometimes that it's difficult to not make meaning of it. So I get that. But when we can realize that we're doing that and just kind of pull back a little bit and just recenter and go, okay, this is not permanent. It's not a forever. I always make it through because I'm still alive. I've always made it through. So what is this here? Why is this here? And what can I get from this? Why is this happening for me?
Yes, that everything you just said, that whole approach to observing your life from this position of just curiosity and neutrality is probably has been one of the most profound teachings for me that has allowed me to shift into more evolution and growth. Because like you said, for so long, it's so easy to just be identified with the struggle, be in victimhood. I was in victimhood for so freaking long. And the minute I changed my awareness and the minute I changed how I looked at the world and what was happening, the minute everything continued to change, right? And you mentioned a quote from Sam, and I just want to go back to that real quick. And for anyone who doesn't know, maybe I'll share this in our intro.
I didn't say Sam Scully. I know, because
that's all good.
We know her. Everybody else should know Sam.
They should, yeah. So for anyone listening, Sam Scully is a mentor, a friend. Kari and I both work now with Sam. We
Mhm.
both went through her program at different times. What was once called Hungry for Happiness,
Mhm.
a program that helped you heal your relationship to food in your body,
Mhm.
now became Pause coaching
Yeah.
certification, trauma informed certification program, because it evolved so much, and it's focused on embodiment. It's focused on
Mhm.
how to use not just your mind, right? Because the mind is just one piece of the whole
Mhm.
process, but really your body, your yeah, access
Mhm.
to all of it. So that's Sam. That's that.
Mhm.
I'll add
Yeah.
her information in the show notes. And actually, since you're listening, Kari and I are both mentoring in this upcoming.
Hey.
Uh, there's so much. So much to
Yeah.
share there.
Yeah.
Kari and I are both mentors in the coaching certification program, and we just had our first call yesterday to just gear up for the year, and
Oh
it's going
my
to be
gosh.
freaking
So good.
epic.
It was so funny because when we first got on that call, Ashley asked me to just kind of, share a little bit about me because there's some new mentors that have been onboarded, and the energy that we were all in when we first got on the call. I mean, the whole call, but my hands were sweating because it was like such amazing energy. There was so much love and so much excitement and so much commitment. So yeah, it's going to be a good year. So yeah, if anybody, I'm going to put like a little plug. If anybody's interested in just wanting to be certified in this embodiment work, 100% go look into Pause coaching certification, and you can work with Ashley and I.
Yeah, yeah. I think just in general, so many people are awakening to the fact that there is more to this life, that like that drive, that little speckle you were talking about, that drive to grow and evolve, like people are
Mhm.
feeling that more and more.
Mhm.
And so I'm so grateful that we both get to like be in this container with learning from Sam and the rest of the
Mhm.
mentors and all the other amazing people that come through that program, because this is how, as a planet,
Mhm.
as humans, as consciousness, we evolve.
Mhm.
um
It's an honor.
so yeah, it is such an honor, and
Mhm.
I'm just so grateful our paths crossed. Like
Mhm.
I am so grateful.
Mhm.
I think back to who I was 2 years ago, and I love that version of me, and now
Mhm.
I'm just so grateful to have gotten to this place, and I'm so excited to see what's to come as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Exactly.
and I want to mention too, Kari, because you also have an incredible program that you're launching soon, like next week.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Tell us about
Yeah,
it.
it's actually called Expand. And it came through as a download. I was meditating, not even thinking about what do I want to create next, and it just dropped in. And typically when spirit drops in a message for me or a direction to go, it's like it'll come in, and then how I'm going to create it kind of trickles in over time. And with this particular program, it dropped in, and then the whole blueprint of it, just I was up writing everything down, like the whole entire outline. And it's a 10-month program. And what I believe that the reason why the download came through is because I was desiring to really, I was coming up on the end of the year for 2021, and I was filling into what do I desire for 2022. And my desire was expansion. I desire to expand even more. And then I also realize the power in doing that with other. And so much of my life, I've done a lot of things on my own. And so that's when it dropped in. Okay, you want to expand? Call in your sisters, call in your people that also are in that same vibration of really wanting to take their embodiment, their authenticity, their purpose, their passion, all of that to a whole nother level that they could never even imagine that they could get to or experience. Call them in. So, and I've never done a program this long. 10 months is like a long commitment for me, but it was very, very clear. 10 months, take them through the whole year. You like for them. So yeah, we're starting soon. And basically I'm just supporting the fuck out of women that just desire to be more and they know that they have that potential and they desire to be supported in that process. And with me, it's like we go deep, but we also have so much fun. Playfulness is such an important piece of my life, and really being sensual and just embodying that feminine playful flow. So our healing doesn't have to be so hard. We believe that, like, sometimes we believe that we have to suffer to like get to the other side, and it can be fun. This process of healing and evolving can also be fun. So I mix all of that in there. That's just part of who I am and my energy. So so there's more details to it, but if somebody's interested, go check out my website, or you can email me, whatever. And I'd love to have you.
Yes, I just, my body is like lit up because I know how incredible that program is going to be. And just being in your energy, even if we're not talking, like even if I crossed you on the street, I feel like I get like this energetic upgrade, and like you just awaken such, like you said, playfulness, embodiment, like sensuality, all of the things. And you're right, healing does not have to be hard. I was just talking to someone about this week. Like, I think I actually have fallen into the habit of like presenting it in that way. And then I'm like, wait a second, so much of my healing has come from honoring my inner child, right? Like hula hooping in the park, like dancing free like a freaking maniac. Like that was more healing to me than some of the like crying alone in my bed or whatever it is. So
Yeah,
that
that's
program
the
is going to be
spiritual
amazing.
ego. And the spiritual ego can be sneaky. And I see it a lot where people really get addicted to their story and their healing. And it's like, oh my gosh, just have some fun with this. We make way too much of this. We become way too serious about this. And and just realizing that, yes, your human does have pain and trauma and wounds and stories, but you are not any of that. You are so much more than that at a soul level, which is who you truly are. You are whole, you are light, you are worthy, you are all of those things. And so when we can realize that, yes, you are in this human experience and you're experiencing these things, but can we create that transcendence and rise above and realize that we don't have to make it so hard, and we can actually enjoy this process and the journey as we're experiencing all the sensations, all of the things.
Yes. I feel like that is just a perfect way to wrap up, reminding people that this journey gets to be enjoyed. This journey gets to be fun. You get to play in all of the messiness, the love, the excitement, the hardships, like all of it is just part of it. You get to embrace it all.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you so much, Kari, for being here. I cannot wait for people to just hear this, bask in your energy. I know I'm grateful for it always, and I love you so much.
Thank you, my love. I love you too. Mwah.
Mwah.